Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Nintendo Fuse's Industry Talk. I'm your host, Barry, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Dean Razavi from Raspberry Games. Dean, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Dean is somebody who I've met over multiple years at Play NYC. Every year it's been a pleasure. Every year it's been a different game being shown off. And every year the games have actually gotten better, which is the great thing. Some developers kind of recess back and not with you guys. So first off, just tell us a little bit about Raspberry Games, how you got into the industry, what you guys are about.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually having this conversation with somebody at Play NYC where I feel that the line "I didn't follow a traditional path into games" is actually more traditional than I followed a very traditional path into games. But mine is not a traditional path as well. I did not go to school for this or anything like that. I was originally an attorney. I was practicing law for about like 6 or 7 years, and then while that was happening, I was just kind of making games as a hobby. I had even when I was a kid, played around with like the StarCraft map editor and all that kind of stuff, and had started working on a game in RPG Maker and was enjoying it and kind of wanted to maybe take it to like the next level or learn a little bit about it or find some other enthusiasts that were making games as a hobby. And so I joined this meetup that was called NYC Games Forum at the time. And that was the precursor to what is now called Playcrafting. It was originally this meetup, and found some really cool people. Was able to like show my game Vidar to like maybe like 50 or 100 people at one of their expos, which was they weren't even called expos at the time. They were like just a place for other hobbyists to come and play each other's games. And just started meeting more people in the industry. Eventually, I got to the point where I felt like I couldn't both be practicing law and doing games. Like the games thing was starting to become its own full-time job. So I formed Raspberry Games in earnest about 2 years ago. No, sorry, 3 years ago. 2016 was when I left the law. God, I can't believe it's been that long. um, but so Vidar was the first title that I launched, and then since then I've started working on new projects and also contracting out to different studios and stuff like that. Right now, Raspberry Games is just me full time, and then I tend to bring on people for my projects as I need them. So for Vidar, I brought on an artist, a pixel artist, and a composer. From Rust, I've brought on a composer, a co-designer and writer, an illustrator, a UI artist, a UI designer, like a handful more people. But those people all tend to be part-time, giving a few hours here and there over the course of the week. But I'm the only one at Raspberry Games that this is like, 40 hours a week for me kind of thing. And yeah, it's been kind of each year I feel like it's growing more and more, and I'm learning more about like the whole process as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you were. I remember seeing Vidar. It was Play NYC 2017, and I fell in love with it. Just I love 16-bit Super Nintendo RPGs. Final Fantasy VI is my love, and just to see that it was great. And that's out now on Steam, which is fantastic. Um, any chance we're gonna get that? That's perfect for the Switch. Like
I know.
we
I
gotta
like.
get
All
that on
right.
the Switch.
So okay. So real talk about this. So Vidar was made in RPG Maker VX Ace, which does not export to anything except for Windows. My loving husband built me a like engine from the ground up to help me export it to Mac and Linux, but that was like a chore to do. Had I done that in Unity in the first place, then it wouldn't be nearly as difficult to get it onto other platforms. But where it is right now, there's no possibility of exporting it to like any other platforms, which sucks. I also feel like I've learned a lot since releasing Vidar, and like there's bugs that I had hoped to be able to fix, but the code is more or less unmaintainable because of RPG Maker and all of its nonsense. And there's no like getting it to like record metrics for me was nearly impossible because RPG Maker doesn't have a concept of the internet or things like that. So had I to do it in Unity, I totally agree with that. So I recently had the opportunity to explore Unity's like tile set features with the graffiti games that play NYC this year. And as I was going through like Unity's new tile tools, I was like, this is surprisingly easy to use. I do have a former tiled game that I could just remake in Unity. So it is in the back of my mind. Every so often I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna end up like remastering Vidar and remaking it in Unity, aren't I? But that's a more of a project than just a port. That is
Yeah.
actually like more or less rebuilding it from the ground up. Just I have the art and the dialogue and like the design done. So it would be a fair amount of work, but I agree with you. I would love to see it on Switch.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not unheard of. Okami, they lost the source code. They rebuilt that, and for the when they brought it to the Wii and all that. So it's not unheard of, and especially since you have all the assets already, I'd love to see, an enhanced edition or a definitive edition or something be brought over because
I
it's a special game. It is a
know.
special game.
It's been like in the back of my mind for several months now, as something that I would like to do, in part because like I'm also aware of the flaws of like the current version on Steam. I'm proud of what I did, but I would always like to be able to improve on stuff. And I also feel like I've learned a lot since releasing Vidar, both about development and design, but also just in terms of how to release a game and put it out into the world. And I didn't do anything right when actually releasing Vidar. So I'd love to get another bite at the apple for that one, because that was definitely a labor of love.
Yeah, I think it definitely deserves it. But if you like 16-bit RPGs, Vidar is out in Steam now. I'll definitely give it a try. Give Demon some love because it is an awesome game. Now from there you went to From Rust, which you showed off last year in 2018, and again this year, in 2019. Um, how has been switching genres in a sense, and a whole different beast kind of deal. What's your experience with From Rust like? Fill me in.
Yeah, so so in some ways it was like very much a needed breath of fresh air. I'm sure that like everyone that you talk to like gets sucked into their games for years at a time that they're working on it, and by like the time they climb out of it, they're just like, I don't want anything to do with anything remotely related to this game anymore. And I like with Vidar, for example, it was fairly sad game. It was, pretty dreary. It's about death. It's about mourning. And so I wanted to be able to stay as far away from any kind of depressing topics as possible, and go into like a much brighter kind of thing. So so in that sense, it's been great. The ability to go to From Rust, which is this collectible card game that's online multiplayer, but it's focused on like this kind of madcap post-apocalypse setting. So it's more like Borderlandsy, Mad Maxy kind of vibes for a post-apocalypse, where it's dark humor and things. That was great. The ability to move into that space, like headspace, was fantastic. Having to learn not just Unity, but networking and online multiplayer stuff for the first time has been kind of a chore. Originally, the game was a actual card game, physical thing that we were, especially when we were prototyping it. It was all in index cards, but I was starting to research printing places to like actually figure out how we're going to print these cards off, and researching like shipping costs and distribution venues for a physical card game. I really believed that it was going to be that, and I took a step back and was like, I don't know the first thing about this. I literally just went through a several year process of releasing a video game on Steam. I learned so much in the process of doing that and made so many contacts in the process of doing that, and I don't like, why am I now like not getting to capitalize on literally any of it? I should do something that I got to like learn a little bit about. So let's make this a video game. And by that point, it was too late to avoid it being multiplayer, and so I had to learn the rest of that. So that was it's been interesting. I have now finally, after 2 years working on this game, gotten into a flow where it's easy for me to figure out what I don't know, as opposed to like Oh my God, it's a multiplayer game. Where on earth do I even start? I at least now like know what to Google, and so that transition has been pretty helpful, or pretty nice, to be able to work on the game. I've really enjoyed looking at this through the lens of an RPG. We've got kind of a dungeon buildery vibe going on a little bit, where we to kind of quickly explain the mechanics, it's a co-op collectible card game. So you've got a deck, and you're drawing cards from that deck all together, like all four people. And in that deck are cards like loot or events or monsters or things like that. And so we pull inspiration from dungeon crawlers like Diablo, like what would you expect to find in a room? All right, put that in a card, and then we shuffle it, and it's a randomized dungeon. Um, and so we're able to go through that. And so a lot of our design has been continuing to pull from dungeon crawlers as opposed to from other card games, and RPG elements also as well, because there's leveling and things like that. So it's been fun to still revisit a lot of the same games that I was playing when I was working on Vidar, and pull some of those items as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I know one of the things you talked about, you hired an artist to come in, and each card obviously requires art, which is a whole huge can of worms.
Yes.
How far along are you, do you think, in terms of having every card that you want with an illustration?
Oh, not even close. I mean, like maybe 10% at most. Probably fewer lower than that. What we're trying to do right now is make sure that all of the different types of things have some art done for it. So that we have not just like so one of every card type has art done for it, and then the backgrounds, and then the UI, and then like all of the like menus and that kind of stuff. So that way we know where to go when we actually enter like that full phase of like we're funded, we're going to hire a bunch of people to do art, and knock out all these cards, because otherwise like my artist could spend all of the past 2 years that I've been developing this game just on card art, and we'd have literally nothing else on the screen, just like little images inside of cards, and she still wouldn't be done because there's so many of them. So the plan is definitely either to bring on additional artists, here, or to outsource that the art development once we have some kind of funding. I've kind of toyed around with the idea of possibly doing like a this deck is like by a featured artist, so like we can bring on an artist just to do like one particular area, because that kind of comes with like a background and a handful of cards that are unique to that area, and it gives it its own kind of flavor. I like that idea of like a guest artist thing. It also reminds me a lot of other collectible cards, where one of the interesting things about the illustrations on Magic the Gathering cards or stuff like that are who's the artist, and there's dramatically different styles between them, and you can tell some of that instantly. That's totally fine. That's something that collectible card game players expect within the genre, and so they don't have a problem with like a lack of, oh, this card looks like it's done by a different, like lack of consistency there. That's totally okay. So it's something we've played with, potentially something where like we bring on a team to like knock them all out, and we have Marina, who's the current illustrator, kind of as a supervisor. We've played with ideas here, but we're right now in the process of kind of an art overhaul to bring it to a more comic-y place anyway. So we want to make sure that that's like finalized before we go crazy with doing all of the rest of the art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Now, what? Yeah, obviously, like one of the big things with collectible card games is expansions, and obviously,
Yeah.
addition of new cards. What about like a crossover, like a Vidar expansion with the characters from that coming over and being turned into
I
cards?
love that. Oh my God. I might have to convince my team that it's not entirely self-serving, but yes, I am on board. It's like the most narcissistic thing that I could do, and I love it.
Well, it's not really. I mean, a lot of companies do,
No, it's
enter
true. It's true.
crossovers and stuff. But yeah,
I
I think
would,
that'd be
I
good.
would totally be on board for it. Yeah.
Now, by the time this airs, the alpha is going to be out, but by the time of this recording, it hasn't come yet. It's coming out on the 23rd of August. What can you tell us a little bit about that alpha? Like, what are players going to get if they get into that alpha? What kind of experience? Obviously, they're not going to have all the art, but
Yeah, so we're actually running monthly alpha weekends. So we started this maybe 2 or 3 months ago, where once a month, one weekend a month, we turn on the servers, and anyone who's in our Discord can play with us. So if you join our Discord, we'll get you links and all that kind of stuff. Then we, invite you to play, and we have it from basically Friday night to Sunday, and then we turn it off so that I have time to work on it for the next month, and I'm not like trying to patch things as they're coming up. For this alpha, what we have 2 zones that are already in the game, and that seems nobody has really like blazed through all of our content yet. So I'm kind of comfortable keeping it at that stage until we get people who are being like, listen, I beat your game like 6 months ago. Let's go. Let's get some more content, right? But we have that. For last alpha, we like heavily revamped our leveling system and really like poured a lot of attention into that, and it's in a really great place. But this alpha, we're really focused on all of the reward systems. So making sure that we're explaining to you how you get specific rewards, what the different rewards are in different modes, not balancing, but like making sure we have a better sense of like how we're doing card unlocks and things like that. We got a new like end of session screen that's up where you can assign your experience and see all the different things about, oh, you leveled and blah, blah, blah. So that's been the core focus for this coming weekend. And every month we try to choose like one system that is either not done yet, that we've just planned but hasn't been programmed, or one system that we feel like needs an overhaul now that we've seen it within the alpha, to try to target that for the next month. And that way it allows us to really focus in on specific feedback on a given system, and it's been great. It's been really helpful to get people to play that. We've got, I think, about 150 people in the Discord right now that pop in throughout an alpha weekend and play, and to get that quick feedback has been really awesome. It's also helped us find bugs that like I was never going to catch. So I mentioned, for example, that this is my first multiplayer game and first foray into these issues, and I wasn't thinking about the fact that like when you log in, your login will eventually expire. And normally games, this is a well-known, well-documented thing where like for any login, your security token will expire and you have to like refresh it and get a new one. And anyone who's ever done any networking is like, duh, Dean, this is obvious. I did not know this, and I've also never played my game for more than like 30 minutes, which was like when it was expiring. Because I hit play, I test 2 things, and then I'm out. I've never had like sat down and just like had to play like dozens of sessions in a row of this game. But people were for our first alpha weekend, and people are like, all of a sudden weird bugs were showing up because they actually weren't logged in or authenticated, and catching that was really interesting. It was great because I was like, oh, people are playing for like several hours at a time, but it was not something I was ever going to catch by myself. It was mercifully a quick fix. So yeah, having that alpha has been really helpful for us. It also helps us build our community. These online multiplayer games kind of die by community, more so than anything else. And so we want to make sure there's a good number of people who are playing the game. And once you're in the Discord, you're able to find other people to play with and things like that. So that's been really helpful to get the core evangelists for the game like cemented around from Rust. Yeah.
Now, obviously, this is very heavily multiplayer focused. What about single player? Like not for the alpha, but for the final release. Like, will there be? So, say I'm not a big multiplayer fan, but I love the card idea. I love the card game. I love the mechanics. Can I play through single player against CPU and just enjoy the story, or do I have to play against other people?
Yeah. So it's not. There's no actual mode for against other players, since it's all co-op. The entire game is focused on teams of players working together. So yes, the short answer is you can play all the games single player. There's not a specific single player mode, but basically the way it works is each session is for 1 to 4 players. There's always going to be 4 characters in the session, and that's kind of your party and your dungeon crawlery kind of way. So you've got like 4 characters in a session that are flipping over cards and using abilities and fighting monsters, and all that stuff. But the who controls those characters can be anywhere to 4 players. So if we're playing as a group of 4, each of us can control one character. we've probably leveled up that character pretty high. I've got more cards unlocked for that character. If you're playing with all four, like if you're the one who's controlling all four in the party, they're probably you probably haven't managed to like level them all up super high, and like you've kind of got your cards spread out and stuff. So it's better to play with other people in that sense, because you get to like benefit from the fact that they've unlocked this super cool thing that's going to help you. But if you want to, the entire game, start to finish, playable in single player mode. It's not a separate like single player campaign versus online play or whatever. It's just flat out, you can play this by yourself. You can take up all four seats in the lobby, is essentially the way to think about it. Yeah.
Well, at least that's an option, because not everybody. Now, what if you don't have internet connection? Is this one that you have to play online? Like it has to have an internet connection, or will you be able to play without an internet connection?
It has to have an internet connection just so we can get like information about your account of like your card inventory unlock. This is, it's not like we're using it for DRM or anything, but we have to know what cards are available to you. If you know, at some point in the future that becomes like a highly requested feature or something we can look into, of like, okay, can we, like the last time you logged in, store that information like on your desktop or on locally for you. But then it becomes like we can't unlock rewards for you. So like you could play, but we wouldn't be able to communicate with the server to say, okay, you have more, you just got this new card. So there's some technical limitations as to why we wouldn't be able to necessarily do this locally. We can investigate some potential options for that, probably post-launch.
yeah, post-launch. Yeah. So what's your time frame? Do you feel like the From Rust will come out, like officially? Non-alpha is just here, it is out, purchase, enjoy.
Yeah, this is weird for me to say, but I don't know, and I'm totally okay with that. Which is like, I know everyone has like internal guidelines of we're going to be launching, and I did with Vidar too, and that's appropriate for almost every game. But for us, what I feel like is it's way more important for me to have community. It's way more important for me to have enough people who are into the game before we decide to pull the trigger on a launch, investigate what the path to launch looks like. So I'd rather say, like, I have internal numbers, but those are like how many people I want to see in Discord, or how many users on the platform I want to see created, or things like that, rather than a date. And that's kind of where I'm going with this, because we have the luxury of putting this until we actually see that there's enough people to support a launch. The last thing I want to do is, we have great fans who are like, launch the game, I'm excited for, let's go, but I don't want those people to then like hop into matchmaking and there not be anybody online for them to matchmake with and things like that. I want to make sure that it's a good experience for everyone, including the people who want it launched ASAP, and that means making sure that there's more people involved.
Yeah, it's a little trickier when you're dealing with the online aspect. You need the player base to do so.
Yeah, and even for those multiplayer games like that other people have, like they're still gonna have launch things, but I just really wanted to make sure like we're not in a pressure mode to like get this. All games eventually reach that point, right? Every game will hit that point where it's like, this has to out. Let's go. But we're not there yet, so I haven't put a timeline on it. There's a potential for a Kickstarter I've been thinking about, maybe sometime early next year, but that's as far as I've gotten in terms of dates. Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, while you're working on From Rust, you've also taken on another project, which you did get to show off this year, which you're publishing, and you're also a producer on, which is awesome. And that is a game called Outpost Delta, which is developed by
Yeah.
Hidden Achievement. Tell us a little bit about
that. Yeah. So just to be clear, I'm not actually publishing it under the Raspberry Games banner at all. I'm just a producer on it. But it's under Hidden Achievement, and they're also publishing it as well. But it's been great. I know Jason and Tess, the people who run Hidden Achievement, from originally actually from a streamer that both of us like used to watch and continue to watch, I should say. And then as a result, like we ended up meeting like on the convention circuit. So they're like down in Austin. So I've seen them for things like Southwest or DreamHack or events like that. and we became indie development friends, etc. And they have been working. Hidden Achievement does a fair amount of like contracted out work. They're really Jason attests with some of the best programs that I've game programmers specifically that I have been fortunate to meet, and they have done a lot of contract work or port work. So like the ports for mobile games of things like Banner Soft or whatever, right? And this one is something that they're developing and in-house, and they don't necessarily have somebody who's like a dedicated project manager / somebody who is reaching out to third parties and stuff like that. So they brought me on just this past February to kind of shepherd this game shepherd Outpost Delta through launch. So that's Outpost Delta is a Metroidvania. It's a 2D scrolling Metroidvania. It's got all those like good retro vibes on it, and the cool thing about it is that it takes place on a space station where you can control the gravity. So one of the unlocks that you get is the ability to like start walking on ceilings and then eventually fighting in 0G and all of this stuff. And that's the core concept of exploring the space station. It's also a twin stick shooter as opposed to just like a platformer, which has made for some interesting, fun, weird mechanics, which I really enjoyed. So that's been also it's nice to be able to come to that project, which was close to completion when I showed up, and just kind of see it through its last year, basically. So we're narrowing in on a launch. We haven't released any specific launch dates. It's almost certainly going to come out on Steam by the end of this year. Consoles are a little bit trickier, and it's probably looking like it's going to be early next year for consoles. A lot of that has to do with requirements for parity. For example, like we have to launch on all of the consoles at the same time, and so we have to kind of have everything lined up before we can push them all out into the world. Even if like the Switch version is ready early, we have to make sure that all the other consoles are ready, and then we can launch all at the same time.
Yeah, this is one I'm really excited for as well because I got to play it at Play NYC and I fell in love. I thought it was really really cool. I want to see a physical of this. I want to see this on my shelf. This game. Make it happen. Come on, Dean.
I told Jason that. I told Jason that. He chuckled. I don't know if that was a good chuckle or a bad chuckle. I like the idea of physical releases. I did one with Vidura. They are I think they can be interesting for your core fan base. And I did one for Vidar mostly for the Kickstarter, but I've since been able to like sell physical releases of it at conventions and stuff, like to sell off the remaining inventory. And I like the idea of physical releases. I did one for Vidar who was excited about the game into like somebody who feels part of the game, where they can take it home. And it's also something that allows people to engage with you at a convention like Play NYC right off the bat, right? I can stand there and be like, hey, go buy this game on Steam. And then maybe they do it when they get home. Or I can be like, you're going to take this box home right now. It's going to be in your bag. And there's something really nice about that like on the spot kind of feel. Because when you're at a con, you're like, I want to walk away with games. I don't want to walk away with ideas for games that I have to buy over the course of the week. I want to go home with swag and with games. And so there's something nice about being able to do that as well. Yeah. Hopefully. I mean, let's see how this release works, and then go from there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is just a perfect fit for consoles for sure. And I hope that you can take the knowledge from Outpost Delta and use that to get From Rust out on consoles and to get Vidar back out on consoles. And who knows? Do you think this is going to be the only project you work with Hidden Achievement on, or do you think that?
I don't know. I really don't know. If they'll have me back, I'd love to stick around on their future titles. I also don't know if they have any other current plans for internal stuff as well. They tend to go back and forth between like internal games and then contract work pretty frequently. So yeah, I would love to. I think it would be great. And yeah, it's definitely this goes back to what I said like at the very outset. Is I feel like every one of these projects is teaching me something, and like Outpost Delta has taught me so much about the console process because it's not something that I ever had focused on or thought about. I feel very equipped now to start to tackle that in future games. Plus, like the internal knowledge. I mean, like it's well known that all the process of getting like launched onto these consoles is super secretive, and so being able to like get into that and like get behind the wall and start to see all that has been really really beneficial. Just to know for everything else going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good because I think your titles need to be on consoles. I think unfortunately, like with Steam, from what I've heard from a ton of other people, Steam is like an ocean, and you're just a drop of water in the ocean, and you have to hope you get seen. Versus consoles, where I feel like there's more push. Like Valve doesn't do any like type of presentation. Here's what's new on Steam, but like Nintendo just had one 2 days ago, where it's like here's indie games coming to the Switch. Microsoft does the ID at Microsoft or at ID at Xbox at like E3 and stuff like that. And I think that's important just to get seen sometimes. And it's definitely one of those things where there's a lot of love to the indie developers right now. Like a lot of people are tired of corporate, or tired of loot boxes, of tired of a lot of the brouhaha, and they want to just get to where the passion projects are, which is exactly what you do. All your titles are passion projects, and I think they deserve that same recognition, that same love, that same attention that all these others are. So I want to tune into like an indie developer, see Outpost Delta, see From Rust, and be like, oh, there we go, Dean stuff is there, because that's you deserve to be there.
It is really exciting like to turn on the Switch and see like some of my friends' games. Like I'm sure Sam Eng, who did Zarvot, and that was a Switch exclusive release, and it was really cool to be able to see like friends' games on that. It's also, I think, listen, the conversation about like marketing on Steam can be a 6-hour conversation, and it's an entirely separate video. But I think it's right to say that generally speaking, you don't get as much visibility on Steam as you would on a console, and largely that's because there's not as many games. Just it's a numbers game, that there's so many more on Steam. And that the process is a little bit more rigorous to make sure that you're on console. The consoles are serving the function of a gatekeeper a little bit more and a curator a little bit more, which can help if you're there to actually be more visible. I also just think that, like, for example, with Outpost Delta, even if I'm on Steam, I'm sitting here at my laptop playing with a controller because it's more fun with a controller. It works with keyboard and mouse, but that's not how I want to play this game. I want to play this game from my couch, looking at the TV. And that's, I think that's a consideration that every game has to ask. Like, how do you want to play this game? Do you want to play this game with a controller, or do you want to play it with a mouse? How do you want to play this game on your TV sitting like very far back away, or is there just like a ton of reading that you're going to want to like actually be able to get up to a monitor? Those are design questions that inform what platform you're ultimately going to release on, I think. And with Outpost Delta was a no-brainer as soon as I joined that. It was interesting when I joined. Jason and Tess were like, yeah, we should talk to Microsoft, but like the rest of the development team had just kind of thought this was going to be a Steam release and that was it. And I was like, have you played the game? Like, I only want to play this game on a console. I don't want to play this game on Steam. And other people will. And even Steam, so I don't have like an Xbox, for example. I have a Switch, I have a PS4. But if there's like an Xbox exclusive, typically it's also on Steam, and I can just get it and hook it up to my TV and have like a controller and still sit on the couch, right? So my thinking is that even people, when they buy it on Steam, will play with a controller.
We'll do the same type of thing.
We'll do the same type of thing.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can't do keyboard mouse. I need controller.
I play I'm mostly a PC gamer, but for certain games, it just feels right to play it on console. I'm trying to think of like other ones recently. I mean, Celeste is like the other one that came to mind, where it was like, even though I normally am a PC go-to and I will prefer to buy things on PC, there's certain like platformers that it's just like, I don't think so. I need to be on the couch.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Sometimes narrative games also, like we'll buy a lot of like heavy narrative games because that way, like, either me or my husband can play it, and the other one can just like watch and still get the story. And that's hard to do if you're like looking over someone's shoulder, like, "Hey, what's going on?" So we'll do that on console as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
same.
it's a tough design consideration of like not just where is my audience, which is important, but how do I want to play it? Like, how do I want to present it, and how do I want it played? So yeah, I
Well,
think Outpost Delta is the right call for this. Yeah.
absolutely. That's the important thing. Played. Like these games need to be played. When I played Outpost Delta, you did have a controller set up for me, so I did play it with a controller. I never touched it with. In fact, if you said here's keyboard and mouse, I probably would be like, I watch someone else play it because I just don't like it. But with the controller, it was like intuitively, like even the right analog stick to shoot, it was like fluid. It was like, oh, this is great. I wanted more. I tell this to everybody who asked me to play their games at shows. I'm very hesitant about playing games at shows because I'm a very in-depth gamer. I like to get absorbed into a game. I like to like the rest of the world fade away. Let me just absorb into this game. And I can't really do that at a show because either A, it's a 3-minute demo and I quickly finish it and I'm like, oh, I want more, or there's other people behind me, or I'm trying to carry on a conversation with the developer at the same time. So I usually like to just say, all right, someone else play, I'll just watch and get a feel for it. And I did play Outpost Delta, and it was just like one of those things where the world did start fading away from me, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is so good. And I had to put it down. I'm like, no, I'll stay here all day. Like I don't know how long this demo goes, but I will stay here all day. I
It's
got I
real.
got the feel. I got the
The
feel.
demo is really long because we haven't like made a specific demo mode, so much is just shown the first level, and the first level is like, God, it can take like 30 minutes to play. And there were some people who are like, I will sit here and beat this, like, which was awesome. It was a great feeling and this was really my main first like outing with this game, right? I normally get to see games at shows from their inception. I've been showing From Rust at some various things for years now, even when it was like a barely playable prototype that would like crash if you blew on it too hard. And it's important for me because I get a lot of really good feedback, and I understand where the design is supposed to go by having people play it. And I never got that with Outpost Delta because I came on so late in the process on this team. And so being able to go to Play NYC and see people engage with the game was so rewarding and fulfilling because I haven't grown up with that with Outpost Delta. So I'm thrilled to hear that was the case for you. I also think it shows really well because it's
Oh
just like
yeah.
such a fun, like, jump into it game. Barely any explanation required. Whereas my MO tends to be way overcomplicated games.
Now, briefly, you did also mention that this year you actually got to do one of the graffiti games at Play NYC, which is really cool. For those that don't know, every year Play NYC Play Crafting commissions several different graffiti games, which are localized games designed specifically for the event at hand. What was it like doing a graffiti game and working with that? Obviously, you learned stuff from Unity, but I mean, what else?
Yeah, I loved it. I just said that I tend to make these like overcomplicated, not necessarily pick up and play games. And so when you're making something that's one supposed to exist purely for a convention, and two has to be done in 6 weeks, it has to be pick up and play. There's not going to be a tutorial. There's not going to be like somebody who can go home with this and like figure out all the in-depth strategies and things that you've put in the game. It's one and done, which is a great design challenge for someone like me who doesn't normally do that kind of stuff. So I loved it. The theme this year was Play with Pride. So it was five or six LGBT developers who were chosen to create games for this show, and particularly because celebration of World Pride was at New York, and 50 years after Stonewall. So with that theme, like some people went like immediately to those categories, and I think that's great. I was concerned when Dan Butchko called me and was like, "Can you do this?" Because it's like I don't necessarily make gay games. Like I make games. I am gay, but I don't necessarily do like queer themes or queer focuses, in my games, as compared to plenty of other people in New York who do that specific thing. And some of them were part of the, graffiti games. And so Dan was like, no, we want a wide approach to this. We want, people who do those like queer visual novel kinds of things. And then we also want people who, are not necessarily going to focus on that. So for me, when I took Play with Pride as the theme, I looked at I started thinking about labels and how people identify themselves and the alphabet soup now that's like LGBTQ plus, etc. And how those words that we use to describe ourselves are kind of helpful originally, and then like they start to break down a lot, and we need to like look for other ways to understand what our own tribe is and how to identify ourselves. So I wanted to play with there not being enough words to describe ourselves, and that's where the game Insufficient Adjectives came from, where you're trying to essentially direct delivery trucks to a specific store based on just a handful of descriptors of what's inside. So if you get like a truck that says large, gray, and leathery, you have to decide whether or not that's an elephant inside or a sofa, and direct it to the zoo or the furniture store appropriately. And that was the core like kind of prototype with it. Originally, it was going to be like a factory where it was like conveyor belts, and then I couldn't find like open art assets for that, so it became a city where you had delivery trucks. And I also like that. I love design approaches by limitations. I think that's why game jams are so popular and helpful. That's why all of these rules-based kind of systems are great for coming up with new ideas, because when everything is in front of you, nothing is. It's too many options, and so when I there's a great website everyone should be using, every game designer, called Kenny, Kenney. I think it's Kenney.nl or something like that. But Kenny assets are fantastic, internally consistent prototype assets that are free for commercial use, free for any kind of use you want. And he pumps them out like crazy. So I went on there, I just started browsing until I found something. I was like, these city tiles look awesome. Let's do a city. And I still use them for game jams and stuff as well, because I think that they're a great tool, and they're easy to use. So yeah, the chance to do that, and then to have a game that was low pressure to show at a con where I'm like, you can play this game and that's it. There's no like sign up for the mailing list. There's no join the Discord. There's no please buy this game on Steam. There's none of. It's just sit down and play the game and enjoy the gaming experience. Was awesome. It was great to be able to do that at a con, because there was no follow up to be like, you had fun, cool, let's down to business. It was just, I'm so glad you had fun.
That's great. I'm so glad that you were able to do that. I think the graffiti games every year are always very unique, and it's nice to see new takes on different things, and like that's just a unique example of just what you can do in 6 weeks and how you can make it work, and just make it fun. And that was the key. So I know you were very, very busy this year. You were always running around. You had 3 different booths you were doing, which is awesome. For those of you that are interested in more of Dean's work, you have to go check him out on Twitter. He's at Raspberry Games. Also, if you're interested in From Rust, the website is fromrustcg.com. There you can join the Discord that he did mention to be part of that alpha. Definitely check him out. Also, Outpost Delta is coming out hopefully soon. That is from, again, it's Hidden Achievement, but there'll be more information on that. Also, Dean is one of the wonderful developers that have joined the Nintendo Fuse Discord. So hopefully maybe you'll get a post of the alpha in there as well. And if you want to talk to him, you're more than welcome to join both those Discords, and definitely give Dean some love. Dean, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. This was great. I'm excited to see, as like the Nintendo Fuse Discord grows, how people are growing that community as well. So I'm hyped.
Yeah, I am too. The sky's the limit, really. So for all your Nintendo news and all your gaming news, please go to nintendofuse.com and check out our YouTube for more videos like this, our podcast, and all our other content. Dean, thank you again so much. And for everybody else out there, thanks for watching, and have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.